Hello my friends, welcome to episode number 4 of the Global Careers Travel Expat blog. So what I'm going to share with you today is a video I made a year ago in which I walk you through all my tips and tricks for doing the IELTS and being successful at it. This episode it's quite long, so stay tuned and keep watching because it's very juicy. And share with your friends and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And see you next week. Mwah. I have a very useful topic that I would like to share with you, especially if you are from a non-native English speaking country and you are planning to either move abroad and apply for residency or go on a working holiday visa or just go studying abroad, specifically to English speaking countries. So I'm going to walk you through what it is, who's it for, why you should consider doing it. I did the IELTS 3 years ago. Originally I was going to move to Australia. Argentinians need to do it in order to apply for the Australian working holiday. So I did it for that reason, but in the end I didn't go to Australia, but I used it for my New Zealand residency. So the IELTS, it's an English test and its scores go from the 1 to the 9. It's not like we pass or not pass. It's more like a photo of our level of English at the present time. There are two different types of IELTS. The general training, which is like the easy one, and then the academic, which is the one that you will want to go for if you're planning to study abroad. The IELTS is divided in 4 different sections: the reading, the writing, the listening, and the speaking. This exam it's not made with a computer, if that makes sense. I'm aware that the TOEFL it's an exam that you do like sitting in a computer. So this one you do with humans. Yes, not aliens, but humans. The difference between the general and the academic is the writing and the reading. So listening and speaking are the same for both, but the writing and the reading are more difficult in the academic because it's more like stuff you would see at the university, like analyzing data and looking at charts. So today I'm gonna focus on the general training. Bear with me as I walk you through the different stages of the exam. Let's start by saying that we need to enroll for the exam in advance, and we will receive an email that will be telling us if we're doing the speaking during the same day that we are doing the other sections of it. Sometimes the speaking could be done after or during the same day. So you need to pay a lot of attention to like your dates. You are going to get into this classroom. It's going to be a clock, and you will have 2 hours and 40 minutes to complete the listening, the reading, and the writing. But each section has its own time, and this is timed very like accurately. You will have 40 minutes for the listening, 1 hour for the reading, and 1 hour for the writing. And then the speaking is between 11 up to 14 minutes. You will be given something like this that will have the writing, and you will also be given this. This is what they are going to be looking at for the reading and the listening. So if you F it up here, you will lose score. You cannot get into the room with anything but like maybe a transparent bottle of water, a pencil, and an eraser, and that's all you can have with you. Each part is divided in different sections. For the reading you will have 1 hour, and it's divided in 3 sections with a total of between 2,100 and almost 3,000 words that you need to read and interpret and just answer the questions. So it's extremely important that to begin with you understand the what the assignment is about, what you need to do, what you need to answer, and what's the task. You will see that it looks like it's a lot of words for 1 hour and all the questions that you will be asked. So it will be very important that beforehand you train your brain to be able to keep up with it and just scan words and find your keywords and what you really and the pieces of information you really need in order to answer correctly. Then of course you have to consider that at the, like for example for the reading you will have to fill this in. So you need to be basically able to train yourself to keep your attention going. You will come across different types of tasks for each section. So for example, the writing can be like match the headline with the paragraph, or just like answer questions in no more than 3 words phrases. So there's like a variety of exercises. So it's important when you're getting ready for the exam that you do your practice going through all of them, so then you can rest assured that you know that you will be able to interpret the assignments correctly. Let's talk about the listening. The listening is divided in 4, and you will listen the audios only once. So it's very important that if you miss something, just do not get caught in it. The questions are in the same order than the audios. So when you listen, you answer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And then if you get lost, keep going, because otherwise it's very likely that you will miss the train and it's hard to go back to it. So these 4 exercises included in the listening will take you half an hour in total, and then you have 10 minutes to just transfer your answers to your answer sheet. What you will hear is different accents, different topics, people having conversation, phone calls, spelling and dates. So you want to make sure that when you're practicing you have your ear trained to say, my last name is Grossi, could you spell that? Yes, Grossi. Train your brain to be able to understand very specific information. You will notice that some questions are kind of tricky. It looks like they will ask you about a name, but in the end they're asking you about what's that person doing. So now we'll go to the 3rd part of the exam, which will be the writing. So for the writing you will have 1 hour, and it's divided in 2 tasks. The first task is easier and it's more in the lines of you need to write a letter to someone or an email explaining certain situation, but they will tell you exactly what it is that you need to write about. So for example, you are planning a trip to New Zealand. You need to contact your tourist agent so you can get more information about your destinations and your itinerary. So ask about where are you going to be staying, what's the timetable for the bus. So like it's requiring information, raising a complaint. It's recommended that you take 20 minutes for this first part. You need to write 150 words, and what is very important is that your structure is well and that you know how to write a letter. So, and then moving on to the second task, that one's a little bit more tricky and it's more complex. So you need to write 250 words, but it's more on the lines of critical thinking. An example, cell phones are changing society very fast. What do you think of schools involving in that type of technology for the future generation, something along these lines. So then you will have to write kind of like an essay saying, what do you think about this? What do you think you could improve that? Or like how schools should handle this issue. So it's more an exercise that wants to go through your thought process and how you can articulate more complex ideas. So as personal advice, do task number 2 first, but just quickly draft task number 1. So this is what I did, and I found it very useful. So I read both tasks, and I was kind of like, okay, I'll take 2 minutes to think about task 1, but I would just like put a pin on it, and I would come back to it later. I focus on task number 2 because it's the one that's more relevant to this section, and then go back to task number 1. Another piece of advice I would give you is that just at the moment of the exam, stick to what you know. What I mean with this is stay on topic, have a structure, be cohesive. Use the tenses you know, use the words you know, because it's not that important that you use like extravagant tenses or like long fancy words. So like if you can only write in present tense, then write only in present tense. That's fine, as long as you are properly articulated. You don't need to be an English genius to nail these. So now we go to the 4th section, which is the speaking. Speaking, it's between 11 to 14 minutes. And you will be let's say like in a classroom, but it's gonna be only you and the examiner. This section, it's divided in 3 different tasks. The first one, it's the examiner just asking you some introductory questions like, where are you from, talk to me about your country, and that will last between 3 to 4 minutes. Then it's when it gets tricky. So you will be given a piece of paper, and you have a pencil, and they will give you a topic and some prompts, and you need to create a draft of things you will talk about related to that specific topic, and you will be given 2 minutes to talk about it. So you will have 1 minute to prepare your draft, and then you will have to talk about it for 2 minutes. So what happened to me is that I didn't get ready for the exam. I mean, I was lucky, it went well, but I didn't get ready for it. And then the lady asked me, do you rather go buying to the market or to a supermarket? Couldn't think of anything. So I was just for like 2 minutes kind of like going like, what, when I buy lettuce, I rather go to the organic market, and then maybe if I need to buy milk, I would go to the supermarket. It was just stupid. So what I recommend to you is that you practice beforehand, and that you stay on topic. My problem was that I kind of like went off topic because I wasn't expecting like such a question. It kind of like didn't make sense to me at that time. But if that's how things are, then I might just like be flexible and go with the flow. Do not go like blah blah blah, because then it's like you're never ending, but you're actually not saying anything. So you need to learn how long it takes you to express certain ideas, so then when you're doing it, you kind of like have that practice within you where you're not like, okay, I need to like wrap things up and kind of like give closure to this. Kind of like, so yes, this is why in the end I prefer to go to the organic market. Easy, right? Easier said than done when you're just like nervous and sweating. Now that I've told you what is it for, who is it for, and how it's divided, I will give you, just like to wrap things up, a little bit of advice for when you are just studying for the exam. First, start without timing yourself. Just specifically for the reading and the listening. You can listen to the exercises as many times as you want, go through your reading as many times as you have to, and even if it takes you 2 or 3 hours, that's fine. I would strongly suggest you to buy practice exams and just do as many as you can, of course, but first start getting familiar with the type of exercises and the titles of the tasks and what is that you are supposed to do with it. And then you can introduce, like, okay, if this was taking me 3 hours, I will do it in 2 hours, 1.5 hours, until you make it to the point where you can actually follow the schedule during the day of your exam. Try to listen to everything in English. Watch movies. This is like pretty obvious, but it's important. Listen to podcasts, watch movies. So translate your life to English, because that will kind of like make your brain act a little bit as a sponge, and you will be able to be more aware of the sounds of the word. When you're writing, just always have someone that could check your writing. The scores are quite specific. So for example, the person that's reading could, like, if you're just doing it with a friend or like that's just helping you, there's a sheet that will tell you like exactly what are the main characteristics of each score level. Like if you are on a 5, which would be like an intermediate user, it says it can use 2 or 3 different tenses, it may occasional mistakes, doesn't use a lot of vocabulary. So it is quite specific, and it's extremely useful to know where you're at. And when you're practicing for your writing, be aware of how to properly address a letter, how to introduce yourself, how to frame your ideas, and just make sure it makes sense. Because when I've been like going through tasks that people send me sometimes, that's what kind of like what comes up the most. That's very important. Then make sure you know how to spell, how to get used to different accents, and just prepare for it, study for it, yes, and do your best. I'm sure you'll be fine, you'll be great. And it's a little bit of an effort, but there's nothing to be really scared of. You can take it again if you want, or if you have to, and always bear in mind the score you would need for what you want to do. For example, if you want to go to uni, you need to have it, usually it's like a 6.5 or a 7 in the academic training, which is more complicated. For example, New Zealand now, you can do the general training, but you need to have a 7, which is, which is a lot. Like, considering that it would be like a 7 out of 9. When I did it, I got an 8, and I didn't prepare for it, but I was confident that I was gonna do well. But that's me, and I've been studying English for many, many years of my life. But if that's not the case, and even when I was studying, I would spend months getting ready for, like, for example, when I did my first certificate. So to wrap things up, I wish you the best. I hope this been useful. Share it with your friends. Sure, we all know someone that's very scared of doing the IELTS, and I don't blame them. Who's not like nervous of doing an exam? And even if it's not like in your native language, so that's even more stressful. Okay, friends, this is all for today. I hope this has been very useful. Bye. Because it's the one that will give you more like score, higher, like it's so this section